Second, the Hemispheric Security Analysis, part of the Security Research Hub, which is an open source research initiative. And third, open source intelligence, OSINT, training and innovation, through the ICCIE Fellowship, preparing students for national security careers. Last but not least is cybersecurity, which increasingly intersects with all of these domains. Now, since JGI already operates at the intersection of international affairs, national security, and the hemisphere, it's a natural partner for the project I'm proposing. Initially, I was focused on the Summit of the Americas, but given the current postponement, I decided to pivot to something that's more actionable and institutionally relevant with Florida International University. Now, one of the main foundations for this project is the fiscal year 2025's Department of State Foreign Operations and Related Programs Appropriations Bill, or SFOPS. On page 100 of the SFOPS report, the committee outlines something called the Latin America and Caribbean Open Source Research Initiative. In simple terms, this subcommittee expresses interest in creating a secure virtual platform that would allow the United States and partners across Latin America and the Caribbean to share information, strengthen analysis of regional trends, and improve collaborative research capacity across the hemisphere. There are three key takeaways from this. The first, that Congress has formally acknowledged and documented its interest in building a regional open source research ecosystem. Second, its prioritization of securing data sharing and analytic capabilities, areas where FIU and JGI have very deep strengths. And third, it creates openings for university-based implementation partners. Using institutions like FIU can play a meaningful role if this concept advances. Now, to understand why this matters, we have the key players. On the congressional side of the SFOPS bill is crafted by the House Appropriations Committee's SFOPS subcommittee, chaired by Representative Mario Diaz-Balart of Florida's 26th District, someone who has collaborated very closely with FIU in the past. This subcommittee writes the annual Foreign Appropriations Operations Funding Bill and inserts report language that guides the executive branch priorities. On the executive side, we have the State Department and its two relevant bureaus, the Bureau of Intelligence and Research and the Bureau of Western Hemisphere Affairs. These offices would interpret and possibly implement or coordinate a US-like open source research platform. The bottom line is that the federal government's growing focus on information sharing, OSINT capability, and regional research collaboration closely aligns with JGI's mission and FIU strengths. Now, the federal ask here is, while Congress has not yet created a fully funded program, it has outlined a vision that is strategic and significant, including the following: a secure platform for US-like information sharing, a tool to strengthen regional analysis, and a foundation that could grow into a fully established initiative and future appropriation cycles. Now, from a proposal standpoint, this signals a clear opening for academic institutions, including FIU, where we can help design research frameworks, training models, open source methodologies, and technical concepts that may shape the structure of this initiative if it does develop further. Next, we have FIU's strategic position. Over here, in the slide, we can see the Security Research Hub of JGI, which produces open source dashboards and story maps on Western Hemisphere challenges, such as the Chinese Activities Dashboard on the screen, visualizing Chinese critical infrastructure developments in Latin America. FIU and JGI are aligned congressionally in several ways. Through the ICCIE Fellowship, students receive OSINT training and collaborate with federal agencies, and through the Security Research Hub, FIU students and researchers produce visuals, data-driven tools that policymakers can directly use, creating emerging opportunities such as expanding programming, integrating faculty and staff's research, and developing concept papers detailing what US-like virtual research platforms might look like, with FIU positioned as a potential implementation partner. Here, we're highlighting some of the main key takeaways that FIU is already advancing national and hemispheric security priorities. Recent developments include the FIU president's high-level visit to Panama, growing research in space, critical technologies, and security, and collaboration with organizations such as the Atlantic Council. These examples demonstrate that FIU is not just observing regional dynamics, but it's actively participating in conversations that strengthen U.S. foreign policy and national security. This credibility strengthens our ability to contribute to a future-like open source research effort. Now, what's next? We need to monitor the new fiscal year, or the current fiscal year's 2026 SFOPS draft for the recurrence of the LAC OSINT initiative. Second, identify and map FIU's existing capabilities, onto emerging federal priorities. Third, develop pilot concept notes, internal proposals, and partnership ideas. And fourth, prepare research memos and white papers for potential government or think tank partners. The big picture here is that FIU and JGI have been very well positioned within an evolving federal conversation that holds potential for collaboration, regional impact, and future funding. Moving early allows FIU to shape the direction of this conversation and secure a leadership role in the hemispheric security and research world. Now to close, I want to thank the Hamilton Scholars Program, FIU in Washington, D.C., the Jack D. Gordon Institute, FIU Honors College for making this semester and project possible. This experience has shown me how academic research and real-world policy debates intersect and how students can meaningfully contribute to these spaces. Thank you very much.
I wish I could be Miguel.
Ask him the tough questions.
And ask all the tough questions. But he's not here tonight, so any thoughts or any questions or ideas that you had based off his presentation? Let me take notes. He did an excellent job. He did an excellent job. All right, so the next
I have a
presentation.
thought.
Go ahead.
I just thought it was great that he brought up relevant things that took place during his internship and highlighted things that the university is doing to further partnership and the center.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we'll definitely take that back to Miguel. And just so that you know, for a lot of these presentations, they are based off the fact that these are projects that we want to see in the future, right? So we want to continue this partnership and sustainability. So our next presentation is going to be from Diane.
Long tap. There you go.
Event.
We have advanced technology, as you can
Unpin it and then move it so you can make it bigger.
We have a little assistance coming.
Thank you, Daniel. Good evening, everyone. My name is Diana Angel. Thank you so much for coming here today. This is my FIU public policy project on the commercialization of space and defense technologies. All right, so for an introduction, I am a senior at Florida International University, pursuing my bachelor's in political science with a minor in international relations. I also have my certificate in national security studies, and this semester with FIU in DC, I was an Ileana Ros-Lehtinen Fellow and Hamilton Scholar, a Green School semester student in DC, and I had the privilege of interning for Partnership for Public Service at their Public Service Leadership Institute. So why it matters. I think it's a bit silly to ask why national security matters, because obviously it matters, but besides obviously protecting Americans, our economic prosperity, and our democratic values, when it comes to FIU, FIU has been working towards advancing critical military technologies to directly support the Department of Defense's modernization efforts and operation readiness, as seen with their origami antennas and cold spray lab, which we'll get into later. FIU has also been working on bridging research to real-world defense applications. FIU actively commercializes its defense research through partnerships with the public sector, ensuring that taxpayer-funded research translates into deployable solutions. And third, FIU's President Nunez, is the chair for Space Florida, and FIU's Jack D. Gordon Institute leads in space policy with the U.S. Southern Command, positioning the U.S. to maintain a strategic advantage in the space domain. Now I have two clients. First, I would like to introduce you to Dr. Tanaji Paul. He's the Assistant Professor of Electrical and Computer Engineering at FIU and also works at FIU's Cold Spray Lab. The Cold Spray Lab works on developing new manufacturing processes with enhanced performance capabilities. So what this means is that his lab uses lightweight materials that are stronger and reduce fuel costs. Cold Spray uses metallic powder to spray to avoid material loss and use only the necessary materials. The main support from this lab comes from a $22.9 million grant from the U.S. Army Laboratory. There was also a patent issued for their metal nanoparticle composites and manufacturing methods thereof by ultrasonic casting. As for my second client, Professor Stavros, he is a professor of electrical and computer engineering at FIU. He leads research in advanced antennas and wireless systems and is part of the Transforming Antennas Center, which developed the origami antennas for defense, space, and next-generation 5G, 6G communications, focusing on deployable, reconfigurable, and energy-efficient designs. The Transforming Antenna Center has previously received funding from the Air Force Office of Scientific Research and the National Science Foundation. Their center has a patent issued for the origami antennas, which fold compactly for launch or transport and unfold to larger sizes for better performance and capable of changing shape and function. Now, earlier this semester, on October 13th, FIU and DC convened diverse stakeholders such as defense technology leaders, federal agencies, and the investment community for a strategic dialogue called Capitalizing on Universities for National Security. This conversation was focused on bridging the lab-to-market gap, because research and new defense technologies would remain ineffective if they don't make it out to the market. Another key aspect of this conversation was to respond to evolving security threats, which is a big question to answer. So with the facilitation of Jill Hellman, we worked with Stratagems to coordinate the uncoordinated, and each table tackled how to advance our national security priorities. Now at my table, shout out to Isa, I had the privilege of sitting with David Blumberg from Blumberg Capital, and he left this event inspired and gave closing remarks on persistence, giving me a shout out because I had given a little background story of when I was a senior in high school, I had applied to a fellowship program at FIU and I was rejected. A year later, I applied again, I got into the fellowship, and that fellowship is the reason I am here today. A big part of that event was also mentioning the importance of public-private partnerships, and I want you to hold on to that. Now, another thing that happened that week was the Association for the United States Army, also known as AUSA, their conference. I was able to attend this event alongside Dr. Tanaji Paul and Bruce Victor from the Gordon Institute. Attending this conference gave me strategic access to the Army's transformative priorities, with the theme being agile, adaptive, and lethal, winning at the pace of change. It also provided unparalleled networking across the defense ecosystem, with over 30,000 attendees from more than 80 countries and 700 plus exhibitors. I personally got the opportunity to speak with representatives from Govini, Esri, and Apex Space and Defense. And lastly, the Army emphasized the urgency of continuous transformation, stating we must get better by 2026-2027, not 2030. Now for our federal actors. There are several key federal agencies involved as well, which would be the Department of Defense, also known as the Department of War, the U.S. Army, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, and U.S. Space Command. As for our key players, we have Representative Mario Diaz-Balart from Florida District 26, who sits on the House Appropriations Committee and the Subcommittee on Defense. We also have Representative Mike Heriodopoulos from Florida District 8, who's the chairman of the Space and Aeronautics Subcommittee, overseeing space policy and budgets for the nation. There's also the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology, as well as our Big Five defense contractors known as Lockheed Martin, RTX Corporation, General Dynamics, Boeing, and Northrop Grumman. Lastly, I can't go without mentioning Miami's tech hub, Emerge Americas, as well as Space Florida. Now for our federal ask. I'm here today to advocate for federal support to establish a national designation to create an FIU National Defense Innovation Laboratory. Florida is the third largest populated state, and if established, this would be the first federally recognized lab in Florida. This would be to leverage South Florida's strategic geographic advantage paired with defense research partnerships between FIU researchers, the Department of Defense agencies, and defense contractors. Oh, sorry, no, there. So, what are our next steps? So, when I went to the event that we had here at the FIU in DC office, the AUSA conference, as well as the Overseas Security Advisory Council's annual briefing, the same thing kept on coming up: public-private partnerships. Undersecretary of State for Economic Security, Jacob Helberg, said, "People actually want to partner with the US, and we need to remove the friction that exists for those partnerships." So let's bring that to FIU with the Strategic Industries Pathway Initiative. For our next steps, we should first establish partnerships and secure buy-in by connecting with the public defense sector and private federal contractors. This would be done with the use of non-binding memorandum of understanding or memorandum of agreement. Secondly, we would design the academic and logistical framework where we would develop the program structure. First, knowing the eligibility criteria of students, how the application process would work, and the split model, which I would say students would first be in the public sector before transitioning into the private sector. And third, we would have a comprehensive recruitment strategy. So we would target students in a relevant majors, mostly being from STEM backgrounds, as well as student veterans that want to transition into a civilian career, as well as students with a national security background. And lastly, we would need to create assessment mechanisms and a sustainability plan to see how the program will succeed, see how students have placement rates following this program, what student satisfaction is, and employer feedback. Thank you. This will conclude my presentation. Any questions?
I know we have some special.
Yes.
Well, this is my special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself? One of my mentors.
My name is Monique Edwards, and I currently serve as Director of Water Administration for the state of Louisiana. And I used to live in Orlando for 14 years, so
perfect.
I
Close to the Kennedy
consider
Space
Florida my second place. Just wanted to comment, good information, and as you develop your skill, you want to be able to talk without having too many notes and reading from the notes.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
Did you want to introduce your guest also?
Yes, I want to give a shout out to Caitlin, who I work with on the AI Government Leadership Program. Shout out to Eric Feldman, who was on the workforce team and is transitioning to his new role. Hannah Adams, who's a PSLI intern with me. And Lisi, who hired me, and though we don't work much together, we have our boba chats.
Yay.
What was your biggest takeaway from the capitalization event with Mr. Blumberg?
Well, I would say my biggest takeaway is just how well we were able to communicate with each other. We worked through 3 different stratagems, and the one that stuck out to me the most was coordinating the uncoordinated. Just because coming into that event, it's a big question how to solve national security. That's not something you're going to solve in one day. It was more so in the conversations that will come out of it and the connections that came from it.
Would you say that the researchers communicated with Mr. Blumberg as well as like someone like you who's in the social sciences space?
Yes, in that table was also Professor Stavros, and he did speak a lot about his antennas work. So I think so. Anything else? Yes, Issa.
I just wanted to say congratulations, very well put together, very well spoken, intelligent young lady. But I wanted to ask you, what do you think are the largest barriers, perhaps on the agency side, that prevent private sector from cooperating or facilitating cooperation with the federal government?
I think it could probably just come down to funding. A big part of that conversation was having private investment capital there at that event to fill that gap when it comes to funding, because a lot of times we go to the federal sector and it's not enough. Just how I went into description about how the the U.S. Army helped funded the coal spray lab, as well as with the Antenna Center. And we're still asking for funding because we're still working towards those research and that product. So private investment capital helps fill in that gap. Got it. Thank you. Nicholas.
Nice job.
The X on the right.
Oh no.
Just touch the middle
Just
one.
touch scary.
Touch the middle.
Daniel. Help.
There you go.
All right, first try.
Microphone.
Hello, everyone. So, my name is Nicholas Arce. I'm going to be presenting my public policy project on replicability in AI functional precision medicine. So, as I stated, my name is Nicholas Arce. I'm a sophomore here at FIU studying economics and political science. I am an honors college student and a SIPA student, School of International Public Affairs, as well as a Green School student and a Hamilton Scholar. So I'm going to be representing Dr. Diana Azzam of the Azzam Lab with Robert Semple College of Public Health and Social Work. The Azzam Lab is one of a few labs that focus on functional precision medicine with integrating AI. Functional precision medicine is precise medicine in her field is pediatric oncology as well as relapse oncology, cancer that has basically come back and is more aggressive than ever. This research is really important, obviously, because we want to save as many lives as humanly possible. Okay. So what is replicability? Replicability is the new gold standard when it comes to research, as we want to be able to provide replicable results that are no longer considered just clinical trials. Oftentimes, cancer patients exhaust all options before opting into a clinical trial, and as such, it is super important that we have new research that is developed further in to have in different research and health environments. Having this replicable data set that allows you to target tumors specifically to patients' needs allows for a lot more advancement when it comes to patient outcomes. AI precision medicine has been transforming care for a while now, and we need to augment these kinds of data sets. These data sets are not only limited to those who have the ability to access high-end technologies and functional precision medicine, but it should also be serving underfunded communities, and that's why Diana Azzam's project is so important. She has partnered with the Nicholas Children's Hospital in Cleveland Clinic in Florida. They have run trial runs, Cleveland Clinic in Florida, more so for that kind of a relapse cancer that has come back in adults, and the Nicholas Children's Hospital is more so pediatric cancer. Right. And FIU has been advancing, is one of the few research labs that has been advancing this kind of technology. Let me go into depth on what this kind of technology actually means. I actually had the opportunity to visit her lab before coming over here, and I saw these machines, humongous machines with 120 different medicines into these small little parcels, and they would put ex vivo patient tumors, which is just the tumors outside the body that are still alive, into these machines with like little injections. It's a big panel of 120 panels, and they start testing different combinations of medicine, precision medicine, functional precision medicine, right? These combinations of medicines can range anywhere from allergy medication, Tylenol, whatever it may be, but a certain combination may unlock that patient's best outcome. There was actually this story of this 5-year-old boy, or 10-year-old boy, I forgot his name, but her medicine saved his life. And these kinds of outcomes are the ones that we're trying to improve with FIU leading that charge. So with that being said, we would like to set a standard for replicability. What replicability actually means, not just for Miami, not just for Florida, but for the United States as a whole. This convening can be spearheaded by FIU with one of just our few labs being at the forefront with the National Cancer Institute, the National Institute of Health, and American Cancer Society, as well as FIU, to set the standard for what is replicability. Because we have our own definition, we have our own data set, but we want to integrate this nationally and be able to provide that to every hospital wherever it may be necessary. Right. As such, we want to be able to scale by increasing the high throughput automation that these AI technologies so desperately need. We always talk about AI with it needs training. And that's so important, especially when it comes to having different kinds of tumors across different kinds of patients. The 5-year-old and the 12-year-old still are under pediatric cancer, but they may be completely different cases. And having more samples will definitely help with providing better outcomes. We have touched upon the why, but we'll go into a little bit more depth. As I said earlier, relapse cancers and pediatric cancers are some of the hardest cancers to treat. Not only is it a lot harder to operate on a 12-year-old or a 5-year-old than it is a fully grown adult, but these cancers are oftentimes far more aggressive and far more difficult to stop, along with the relapse cancers that have developed a resistance to any kind of cancer treatment, whether that be chemotherapy or otherwise. Right. This precision medicine has given us highly replicable results, but we need to be able to scale that. Right. And we believe that FIU provides that missing piece. And as such, we need FIU to deal with these key players, as I mentioned earlier, the American Cancer Society, National Cancer Institute, and National Institute of Health, along with our federal committees, the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, the Senate Health Committee, House Appropriations Committee, and Senate Appropriations Committee. More so on the House side, I would say, than the Senate side, as they have a lot more, they have the oversight over the National Cancer Institute and National Institute of Health. The House Appropriations Committee directly oversees funding of these organizations and would be able to help FIU get that seat at the table. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your night.
Now, where are you interning? Do you have any
Yes, I am interning at Congresswoman Federico Wilson's office this semester, and I've actually recently been extended for next semester as well. So I will be here. Yes. So thanks to FIU in DC for providing me this opportunity. Thank you for my fellow Hamilton scholars and my Green School students as well, and for wonderful Professor Shar here today. Any questions? Yes.
So how does the AI interact with like a PET scan?
Oh, okay. So the AI kind of just, it trains on the different models. So having more scans will, and not only will it's not going to know exactly what it means. You need the actual researcher kind of given the input, this is what this means. So we need to increase that input on the scans in order for it to understand and train itself. Because then it's going to be able to self-train. Hey, if this is what this means, question mark, is this what does this result actually give us? And that's kind of, at least to my understanding, it's a kind of very new and limited understanding that I have. But yeah. Any other questions?
To tell you excited about it.
Yeah. Yes.
I want to know more about the AI. What's the current state of its function? Does it need more research, more tuning?
Yes, to all of those. It needs more research and more tuning. Currently, we have a small kind of data set based on our clinical trials, and what it's training on is basically this cancer responded positively to, or positively or negatively to this combination of drugs, of accepted drugs, and it's been able so far to give us scale up the amount of drugs that we're able to test because it's able to do different combinations faster than a human being. So we just need more output and more input for that kind of training. Yes, ma'am.
Good job. Congrats. I wanted to ask you if you could explain a little bit how this treatment compares to traditional treatments for cancer like radiation or chemotherapy. Is it less invasive for the patient? How does this affect the host?
Thank you so much for your question. It's currently, as it stands, it's a little bit more invasive than traditional chemotherapy. I mean, you still need surgery because they need a sample of that tumor, and then you need to be subjected to the treatment. That's why it's been currently relegated to simply clinical trials, as it isn't yet, and I think it will be at some point, the kind of standard for cancer treatment. Chemotherapy is, as we already know, incredibly invasive and difficult on the body. So this kind of gives you it's a clinical trial also. That being said, it would give patients the option to a different kind of invasiveness. Now, I wouldn't be able to tell you more or less, but Kenny might be able to.
So it's actually, just to correct the record, it is less invasive because you're having FDA-approved drugs that can just treat without having to go through chemo. So you can avoid chemo altogether, just to clarify. Yeah. But it's very complex medicine. And,
yeah. So you just wouldn't do chemo, but some people also don't like surgery whatsoever.
They can take a small...
Yes, it's a small sample, which is a smally invasive surgery. Yeah. Yes. Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Good job.
Yeah. Good job. Take that up.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. Today, we are here to envision a Center for Excellence at FIU that will honor and will support survivors of 9/11. I want to first introduce myself. My name is Sofia Giraldo, as Nicholas introduced me. Thank you. I'm a Hamilton Scholar this semester with FIU. I'm also interning in Washington, D.C. I have the opportunity to intern with the Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute, where we have two placements. We have a congressional and a corporate placement. For the congressional placement, I was working with the Office of Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart. And for my corporate placement, I was working with the team of UPS Government Affairs. I want to shout out my invites today, my two, Jocelyn and Victor. They're from Chile as well. And thank you so much for being here. And now, to introduce my project, I would like to first introduce Dr. Roberto Lucchini. He's a professor at the Robert Stemple College of Public Health and Social Work, in which he specializes at environmental health sciences. I'm here advocating for Dr. Lucchini since he has dedicated his career to protect the health of communities. His research has been dedicated to evaluate how chemical exposures and environmental exposures can affect the health of communities. He has held some positions previously in New York, specifically. He worked at Mount Sinai, that is a clinic that conducts research for 9/11 survivors, and he was director of this program. He's a very knowledgeable professor that is constantly advocating for this matter. Now, to introduce my case study, I would like to say that we oftentimes think that 9/11 it's just a New York tragedy, but it's not. It has expanded throughout the country, and right now Florida ranks 3 in the relocation states of the survivors of this tragedy. Unfortunately, Florida doesn't have a clinic or a hub for the survivors, and that's why we're asking for support in this matter. As you can see over here, this is the actual program that it's existing in New York for these survivors. It provides physical assistance and mental health assistance for the survivors, but it's only located in New York. This meaning that the ones that live in Florida, the survivors that live in Florida, can't access this service directly. They will have to travel all the way back to New York, being expensive, not accessible for everyone, and this generating frustration and lack of support for Florida survivors that have been relocated. As you can see over here, those are some statistics of the survivors and responders that now reside in Florida. As we can appreciate, Florida ranks 3, as I mentioned before, and its population is expected to grow. Why? Because the New York firefighters and responders that helped in this tragedy are relocating to Florida. They're moving from New York to Florida for retirement. So this population is expected to grow in recent years. I spoke to Dr. Lucchini about this, and he mentioned it's approximately 20,000 survivors that are going to be relocating in the next 10 years. Moving forward, the health issues that were a consequence of the collapse of the Twin Towers, we can see they're being having respiratory illnesses, conditions, cancer risk has increased, and also the survivors have developed a distinct form of dementia. It's called early dementia because it's happening in 65-year or earlier or younger survivors. This happened because after the Twin Towers collapse, there was a cloud of dust that contained mercury, lead, concrete, heavy metals, and glass, as well as asbestos, that have generated these health issues in the survivors. Moreover, as of March 31st, 27 of 2025, we can see the top 5 health challenges. As I was mentioning before, the top challenges are cancer, mental health, that it's sometimes overlooked, and also respiratory illnesses. So, my ask today is to set a path for the FIU Center of Excellence to be created. But how are we going to advocate for the survivors? With the help of federal and state agencies, we can establish this center. We are going to start by the federal agencies. The CDC, it's the National Public Health Institute that will oversee NIOSH. NIOSH is a specified branch of the CDC that will help for this project to conduct the scientific research, and also that will provide the funding for the center. Moreover, as we talk about funding, the House Appropriations Committee, specifically the Subcommittee on Labor, Health, and Human Services Subcommittee, will help for the funding of this initiative. And right now, we have a member of Congress from Florida that sits in this committee that can help us advocate for it. It's Representative Louis Franco from Florida 21st District. Moreover, we have to introduce into policy. We have to introduce this into policy. So we will need to reach out to the Senate Help Committee the Senate Help Committee for National Policy related to health. And then once we take it to the state, we can take it to the Florida legislation, state appropriations specifically, since we need to find a way to allocate these funds the federal government has provided. And who is going to oversee the program? The Florida Department of Health, that will be in charge of allocating this program and making sure that these survivors receive the care we're proposing right now. Moreover, as I was mentioning before, sometimes mental health issues are overlooked for the survivors because we related more towards the respiratory, the cancer, since they were exposed at ground zero to the substances, but they're experiencing really tough mental health issues. And the Florida Department of Children and Families, the Office of Substance Abuse and Mental Health, will help us with this type of survivors that need assistance in these matters. Why should we choose FIU? FIU has existing research on cancer, as Nicholas was explaining a moment ago, and also in Alzheimer. Moreover, Florida International University ranks top 50 as a public research university, and recently it was awarded let's say the specific award, the Permanent State Research University by the Florida Board of Governors. Moreover, FIU has a strategic location in Florida that will help us reach out to the survivors, and we can provide the medical and the mental health assistance. Moreover, we're not only to do research for the survivors in Florida, but we're also going to contribute to national data that can later expand the program through other states. Finally, to take next steps on how to start doing, how should we start toward this Center of Excellence, NIOSH offers a T42 grants to universities that want to conduct research on specific types of issues. It could be related to health. It could be, they have different sections that universities could focus on. And we could advocate for a T42 grant for FIU to conduct this Center for Excellence, and a Hamilton Scholar in the future. If you're watching, you can take this project as well, and you can continue to develop our advocacy for the Center of Excellence. Finally, if you're interested in seeing the data, or if you missed anything from the presentation, you can scan this QR code, and it will take you back to the presentation. That will be all. I would like to open the floor for questions. Sorry.
When you talk about cancers, is there any one particular cancer that the survivors have?
Yes. Go back to the slides. Yes. So. There has been an increase specifically in leukemia, that it's a cancer type for the blood. I don't know how to explain it because I don't know that health, but it's for the blood. There's a 41% increase, and also in prostate cancer. So, as I was mentioning during the presentation, the exposure to these substances can. Toxic chemicals have increased the probability of cancer in these individuals. The effects have not been explicitly, they didn't experience any symptoms while they were breathing these toxic chemicals, but over time, this has been a problem, a really big issue. And this has not only been an issue for the survivors that were in the attack, but the responders that were responding to the attack, because they were in ground zero and they were inhaling all those substances that later increased the probability of cancer. Any other question?
Has there been any steps or from the Florida legislature to make this already, like without federal assistance?
Well, there's already, this initiative has already been introduced in the past, but just for New York. So that's why we want to take it to Florida. And specifically, I have the name of the bill that was introduced, but for the New York one, it is the, called the bill? I'm so sorry, I'm taking it. It's called the 9/11. Well, here, the 9/11 Health and Compensation Act of 2010. That was the initial bill that funded the existing program that it's taking place in New York. But we would like to accommodate this funding to Florida. So we would like to take this through the Labor, Health, and Human Services Subcommittee. We would like to take a part of this funding, and we would like to take it to Florida. However, this could be possible because this act that was introduced in 2010 was later reconsidered because they're evaluating the funding. Even though the funding that was initially granted was extended to 2090, sorry, we are experiencing some shortfalls. For example, survivors relocating to other states, so they're assessing the funds, and there's a possibility for Florida to be introduced in the new bill that will be the 9/11 Responder and Survivor Health Funding Correction Act, that it's right now introduced in Congress.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, do you have a
That
question?
was you.
Oh, that was me, okay. Congratulations, Sophie. I promise you didn't invite us to ask her questions. She's been talking about this presentation, so it's awesome to see it into fruition. But anyways, the question that I had, so you mentioned Florida was like the third state that had the largest population of 9/11 survivors. So I was curious I wasn't sure which one was the second state. It seems like it's New Jersey.
It's New Jersey,
Right.
yes.
So with that, I wanted to ask, like, if there's, I guess, New York has obviously, I assume, has already sort of implemented, their ways to address this issue and to help with the recovery and health process and mental health recovery. But what has maybe New Jersey has done? I don't know if you were able to maybe look into that. I know you primarily looked at Florida, but if you know what maybe that could be used as like a legislative framework for implementing new programs for Florida, so you can kind of use that as a
Yes.
way to.
So the New Jersey population, it's able to, all of the survivors are able to access the New York program because they registered to the CDC program. So they're all under they're registered in the same system, but they will have to travel to New York. So that's why we want to take it to Florida. Florida has an initiative on that. However, we don't have a research hub or a clinic because we don't have the funding yet. So, for example, as I was mentioning, Dr. Lucchini, he has conducted research specifically for the Florida population, and even though he can reach out to the survivors, he can't help them directly because there's not an established or certificated center for this. That would be the one we want to have in FIU.
Thank you.
Oh no, I didn't know.
All right, so let's give another round of applause for Miguel, Diana, Nicholas, and Sophia. Thank you for our guests. Thank you for attending. Always know that FIU can be home for you also. It's my home, my Miami home, being here in DC. Hamilton Scholars always inspire me. I still have students that come back and ask for letters of recommendation, so know that I'm here for you for that, and want to be very helpful for you in your next steps. Hopefully you stay in DC. It's freezing right now. If I could be in Miami right now, I probably would be in Miami. But want to say thank you. And if I can get the Hamilton Scholars to come up, we'll take a quick photo, and then